Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're objectively unpacking the impending regulatory and economic forces that are literally squeezing Ontario's construction waste export market. Look, if you're generating or moving construction wood waste right now, you might not fully realize it yet, but two different governments are quietly closing the two cheapest doors you have, and they're doing it at the exact same time. So we're going to dive straight into the actual data, the changing legislation, and the cutting-edge technology that logistics managers are using to navigate what industry insiders are actively calling the regulatory pincer. To really grasp the sheer scale of this issue, we've got to start with the massive volume of municipal solid waste, or MSW, that Michigan imports from Ontario, Canada, every single year. We're talking over 3.4 million tons. That is the amount of MSW disposal being shipped across the U.S. border to Michigan landfills from Ontario annually. You know, when we usually talk about cross-border trade, our minds go straight to auto parts or agriculture, right? But waste is a massive, highly synchronized international supply chain. And to put that volume into perspective, Canadian waste makes up a staggering 14.35% of all waste disposed of in Michigan landfills. Think about that for a second. Nearly 15% of the landfill capacity being utilized in the entire state of Michigan is coming directly from across the border. When you've got an export corridor that is this heavily utilized, any shift in policy or pricing creates immediate, massive financial ripples for absolutely anyone relying on that route. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the cross-border waste corridor, the Michigan regulatory wall, Ontario's tightening rules, the tariff trade war, the sentient bridge AI, and finally, digital refinery economics. Let's jump right into Section 1, the cross-border waste corridor. The financial gravity here is just immense. A lot of contractors think of disposal as simply paying a standard dumpster fee, but the reality of this corridor today is that a single mixed load can cost logistics managers an unexpected penalty of well over $1,000. When you actually factor in the spread between a clean disposal rate, which is around $5, and a mixed rate of $60, and then you add in the compounding costs of tariffs and rejections, well, the true penalty for a simple sorting mistake at the bin level hits an astonishing $185 per ton. Moving on to Section 2, the Michigan regulatory wall. Now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer's proposed fee hike is pretty staggering, especially when you look at the neighboring states. Right now, Michigan's tipping fee is a mere 36 cents per ton. Pennies. Meanwhile, Ohio is sitting at $4.75, and Wisconsin is anywhere from $7 to $13. So this proposed plan moves Michigan from those 36 cents up to a flat $5 just to align with its neighbors. That's a roughly 1,289% jump. And state officials have explicitly designed this to remove the financial incentive for Canadian provinces to dump their trash in Michigan. And let's be clear, this isn't just some hypothetical idea floating around. Sponsored by Representative Rachel Hood in the House and Senator Jeff Irwin in the Senate, these bills aim to raise $80 million annually for brownfield cleanups. Now, while they were temporarily dropped from a previous budget, they've been aggressively reintroduced for the fiscal year 2026 budget. For anyone in the business of exporting waste, the real question isn't if this toll is going up, it's exactly when your invoice is going to reflect this massive hike. Let's flip to the other side in Section 3, Ontario's tightening rules. So domestically, Ontario uses the TCLP toxicity test across 88 different contaminants. Just for context, that is more than double the U.S. standard. Under Schedule 4, leachate limits for heavy metals like arsenic, lead, and chromium are strictly capped. But the thing you really need to pay close attention to is the derived from rule. This legally dictates that any unverified mixed waste is automatically presumed hazardous until you can definitively prove otherwise. You are effectively guilty until proven clean. Add to this the ReWood 2029 initiative, which is going to outright ban clean wood from landfills, and you can see this incredibly tight domestic trap forming. Which brings us to Section 4, the tariff trade war. Both sides of the border are applying intense pressure right now. While local lawmakers like Rep. Hood point out the enormous discrepancy in landfill pricing, Washington and Ottawa are adding their own massive layers of complexity. Based on year-to-date reporting, former President Donald Trump introduced a 50% tariff waive on Canadian imports under Section 232, which specifically impacts wood products. Now, while the broader USMCA, or CUSMA as it's known in Canada, actually survived its July review and remains in force until 2036, these targeted tariffs on construction and wood materials remain a huge liability. And in response, Ontario Premier Doug Ford promised a swift reaction to, as he put it, make them feel the pain. This just highlights the intense political friction surrounding cross-border materials right now. Our goal here absolutely isn't to take a political stance, but we have to objectively show you that dumping raw materials across the border is now caught squarely in a geopolitical crossfire. So we are caught in a true regulatory pincer. On one side, the cost to export is just skyrocketing due to that proposed Michigan $5 fee and those lingering Section 232 tariffs. On the exact opposite side, domestic landfill rules, driven by these guilty until proven clean mandates and the impending REWOOD 2029 ban, are making it nearly impossible to legally and cheaply dispose of mixed loads at home. So, faced with these two rapidly closing legislative and economic walls, how on earth are supply chain economists and everyday contractors finding a way out? I mean, if you can't afford to export it as trash and you can't legally dump it locally as a mixed load, what is the viable exit strategy here? The answer lies in Section 5, the Sentient Bridge AI. To solve this massive headache, industry innovators like 905 Wood have created what they cleverly call a sentient bridge. It's this intelligent digital link that stands directly between a chaotic, mixed construction site and the very high purity requirements of the biocarbon market. By strictly categorizing the wood waste right at the source, the system completely neutralizes that presumed hazardous regulation we talked about earlier. It definitively proves the material is clean before it ever even goes on a truck. By doing this, 905 Wood secures Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. Let's break down how this actually works in an operational workflow. It all kicks off with a verifiable request for quote. Then, using a Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16, a worker literally just scans the bin. Powered by a light art AI stack, the system categorizes the wood in under 500 milliseconds. Crazy fast, right? The digital refinery application workflows UI/UX then instantly outputs comprehensive PDF documentation. Crucially, this output includes a USMCA Certificate of Origin under Harmonized System Code 3825.0, right alongside full verification and compliance records. It acts as a seamless, lightning-fast digital gatekeeper. Let's look at the actual numbers in Section 6, Digital Refinery Economics. The bottom line for your business is this. By generating that verifiable certificate of origin through the AI workflow, contractors lock in a highly favorable $5 clean rate under Ontario's CIR kill wood waste levy. This completely bypasses that brutal $60 per ton mixed rate penalty. But more importantly, it entirely reclassifies the dumpster from tariff-targeted trash into a certified zero-tipping raw feedstock product, helping you avoid those cross-border trade war liabilities altogether. When you translate that spread into real-world dollars, utilizing your data as a zero-tipping asset yields massive operational savings. We are talking about saving up to $1,053 per single mothership load. When you apply that across an entire logistics fleet managing hundreds of bins, this proactive digital compliance scales to over $200,000 in weekly cost avoidance. Compliance isn't just a legal necessity anymore, it's practically a highly lucrative product in itself. As we wrap up this explainer, you really have to ask yourself a critical question. Are these tightening cross-border regulations and trade tariffs a risk to your business, or are they an operational moat just waiting to be built? The regulatory vice of the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor is absolutely closing, but those who utilize Edge AI to turn waste into verified digital assets are going to find themselves standing on very profitable, highly compliant ground. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the data today, and I highly encourage you to look deeper into how these digital compliance workflows can be integrated into your own operations. Catch you next time.